There are so many people walking around living with a dysregulated nervous system. They're getting into dating, they're getting into new relationships, and not even realizing that the likelihood of creating and maintaining a healthy relationship with this problem is extremely difficult. And we can look at lots of different theories, attachment theory, polyvagal theory, which shows that we can mistake our dysregulation for chemistry with a new person. And it can make us want to be super attached or run away. And also replay the same relationships just with a different person. And I hear this so often. People getting into relationships with the same types of people who cheat, people who are abusive, are controlling. And this is exactly what I want to explore today. We're going to discover some of the secret ways our nervous system is telling us that we haven't healed and maybe aren't quite ready for a new relationship just yet. But the first thing that I want to say is, once you start listening to this episode, if you start thinking, oh God, that's me, I don't want you to kind of get all in your head about it. We all do this. I got some simple solutions also in this episode for you to be able to start on your journey of rewiring this. Hello, and welcome back to Whatever Happened to the Gentleman. I am your host, Sam Morris. I'm a former probation officer turned empowered dating and healthy relationship coach. And I have been teaching people what a healthy relationship is and how to heal from the not so healthy ones for just over 10 years. And before I kind of fully go into this episode, I get a lot of people that are my clients, and also just people that are on my email list saying, Sam, we want to hear about your life. All you ever talk about is do this and this theory and that theory and all of that stuff. I just thought I'd pop on and kind of say hi. I actually got a retainer fitted today for my teeth. If you're watching on YouTube, you obviously will see my teeth. I had braces as a child, and I recently noticed that actually one of my teeth is kind of going back to how it was, and it scared me a little bit. So I went and I saw my dentist and I got myself a retainer. I don't remember the retainers being this tight. I really, really struggled to actually get it out, and I may disgustingly need my husband's help to do that later. But yeah, that's what's new in my life. My daughter today is her final exam, but by the time this goes out, it'll be a few weeks later. I'm just really, really excited for the summer. Everyone kind of gets way happier in the summer, probably because of the weather. But yeah, and so that's it really. I don't really do that much. I do my podcast and I love doing my podcast, and I love working with clients. So, which makes me sound really, really boring, but well, do what you love, right? So yes, let's get onto the episode. So many people, they finish one relationship and then they jump straight into another one. And, I was the same. Without ever kind of addressing what had happened, processing the pain, and learning how to move on. And most people think they're over it, right? They've deleted the number, they've blocked them, and maybe even started dating again. But the nervous system, it's still fighting battles that the mind thinks we've already won. So today I'm going to walk you through the 13 hidden signs that the nervous system is still dysregulated from past relationships and past experiences. and how they may be sabotaging your love life, your peace, and your sense of safety without you even knowing. And just as a disclaimer, some of these may trigger a reaction in you. You might get angry, you might feel sad. And if this does happen, I'd like to invite you to sit with that feeling and work out why it's coming up and where it is coming from. Because normally there's a reason for it. And what we as humans have been taught to do is to ignore that. I don't sign up for ignoring. And most of the people that listen to this podcast, that work with me, they want to make changes. And ignoring our problems, ignoring our emotions, ignoring our feelings is never going to help you make changes. So, number one is hyper independence. So, you know, where you say, I don't need anyone. Or when someone offers you help, and you get all offended about it and say, I could do it myself, thank you. You might not actually be as empowering as you think. And I've worked with a lot of people who say they've done everything by themselves and they're so proud of it. And they should be. Doing things alone isn't actually easy. But underneath all of that is normally a belief. And a lot of the people that I work with on my group programs, in my one-to-ones, have realised that they believed needing someone else meant that they were weak. We are taught from an early age to be strong, to be independent. These values are at our core. So when we start to think differently, we tell ourselves it's wrong. And for a lot of my clients, being alone can mean being safe. So Susie, for example, whose nervous system had decided being vulnerable was dangerous. And that was based on her lived experiences of every single time she let someone in, she was vulnerable with them, they left, or they cheated, or they rejected her. So for her, it was safer to do everything alone. And if you felt that, if you understood that, you may be masking your independence. And if you felt that, if you understood that, you've probably been masking your independence and you now want to start making changes. And all you need to do is start small. Every single piece of work that I do with my clients is about taking baby steps, the 1% actions. So go and ask people who you do feel emotionally safe with, maybe a family member, maybe a friend, to give you some help, or tell them that you're feeling down, or ask them to help with a task. Once your body starts to realise that not everyone leaves, not everyone cheats, it can then start to let the right people in. The second hidden sign that you might not be over your past is overthinking. And I'm not just talking about in a relationship, but obviously it shows up there too. You're thinking about messages you've sent, what you could have said instead. Maybe you're reading past messages and trying to decipher what that could have meant. Perhaps you are thinking about what you said in a situation and second-guessing yourself, or thinking about what you didn't say and wish that you had. Maybe you rehearse situations in your head even after they've happened. This isn't just kind of a sign of anxiety. It's a sign that your nervous system is trying to protect you. And it's gone into a little bit like an intelligent gathering stage. Because you don't feel safe, you are trying to risk assess so that you can try and control the outcome. One of my clients says she used to retype her messages out and delete and retype them again and delete about 5 times before she sent them, even with her own workmates. And when she was getting to know a new person, it was an absolute nightmare. And what I showed her was a simple breathing technique to calm her vagus nerve so that she could authentically be herself without needing to second guess anything. The third hidden sign that you're in nervous system dysregulation is keeping yourself busy. So you've never got a free moment. Your diary is full. You feel overwhelmed, yet you still add more into that diary. And most of my clients go through this at some point. It's part of the reason that I drip feed my self-paced audio program, because I had clients trying to rush the process. And you can't rush the healing process. You need to take a bit of time. And when I had people doing that, they're going through the program and they're trying to get their gold star. I don't actually give out gold stars, but they're trying to get to the end so that they can do it the fastest. Keeping themselves busy, it doesn't work. So I drip feed it. You get 1 week at a time, because rushing the process isn't going to work, but you keep yourself busy. And if that sounds a little bit like you and you're always busy, just start with 10 minutes a day of intentional stillness. I'd always say try and do it in the morning because, it sets up the day. Set your alarm for 10 minutes earlier. Go for a walk without your phone. Sit with a cup of tea or coffee, water. Let the thoughts come up. Don't ignore them, because that's where the healing begins. The fourth hidden sign is your body and its tenseness. Yes, I am serious. Have you ever had a clenched jaw, tight shoulders, your stomach is in knots and you've literally got no idea why? That is your body bracing itself for an impact. If anyone here has ever had a car accident where you are kind of the driver or you're in the front seat and you know about driving and you see something coming and you know that there's going to be an impact, you tense up. So if you're driving, a lot of people end up breaking their wrists, even with airbags, because they're holding on to the steering wheel so tight. And the majority of injuries from accidents like that, and I'm not talking accidents where the whole car is in bits, but accidents like that, a lot of the injuries are to do with a person actually tensing up before the impact. And it causes a lot of damage. And this is the same, with your body, with your nervous system. When you've been hurt before, your body is braced for that impact. It thinks that it is in danger, and so it's getting ready. And I've spoken about this before, but I used to walk around with a giant weight, pressing on my chest. And I thought this was normal. And it wasn't until I started the process of healing that I realised it wasn't normal to constantly feel like someone's pressing on your chest. The majority of people don't have that, and actually it was my body saying something's wrong here. So if that resonated with you, you can simply start by just doing a quick body scan of where you are tense. And I do this with my clients a little bit more in depth because it's a lot harder to do by yourself. But you can start to look where your body is telling you there's a danger and start to listen to it. The fifth hidden sign that your past pain might still be showing up in your nervous system is you feeling a little bit emotionally flat. So maybe you feel a bit numb, maybe you are switched off. And this could be a little bit of a sneaky one, because most people who experience this, they aren't the ones that are sat there crying. They aren't having kind of panic attacks. They aren't struggling or appear to be struggling emotionally, but they don't have any feelings. It's where people will be like, actually, I'm not bothered. And I get a lot of people come to me that are confused about that because they're like, I loved this person, but I feel nothing now. And then when we start looking at it, it's not just that one situation that they feel nothing about. They just feel completely numb. And a lot of people confuse this with being healed. And it is just you keeping you safe. There's a term, the dorsal vagal shutdown. It is where someone who has been through a traumatic event, and just so we are clear, there are no values on trauma. I don't put values on trauma. So many people will say, well, you didn't have it as bad as that person because. And they try and compare bad things that have happened to say one thing isn't trauma and another thing is trauma. And yes, there are catastrophic events. There are wars. There are victims of abuse. But that doesn't mean that their trauma is more valid than yours. A breakup is traumatic. Death of a family member is traumatic. It puts pressure on you. It's stressful. It can make you feel trapped, and it can make you feel powerless. Being cheated on is traumatic, and I don't want anyone to ever feel like they can't feel that because maybe they haven't been through what regular people say is trauma. Anyway, when this happens, the feeling of numbness can extend to kind of feeling of disconnect, difficulty in communicating with people and thinking clearly. A lot of people that go through this part tend to kind of cut themselves off from the world and not really understand why. And a lot of those people, and you know, I'm not a medical professional, but I have worked with a lot of people with mental health problems, and a lot of these people, they shut themselves off from the world and they go, you know, they say to the doctor, I don't want to go out, or I'm struggling to communicate, or I feel nothing. And the doctor will prescribe something, antidepressants, whatever it is, they prescribe it. Antidepressants won't fix your nervous system. And like I said, I'm not here to give medical advice because I don't have a doctor's degree. They can help people that are depressed. But if you are struggling because you've been through a traumatic event, normally you need more than just medication. And saying that from someone who, you know, I did have postnatal depression. I was put on antidepressants, and actually I went and I had therapy, and the therapist said, you went through a traumatic event. And obviously this isn't relevant to relationships, but it's still the same. When I gave birth to my daughter, me and her both nearly died. She was born with the cord wrapped around her neck, and they had to resuscitate her, and then I passed out. And it was very traumatic, and obviously lots of people go through traumatic births. It's not just a me thing. But my therapist said to me, you know, you can stay on your antidepressants forever, but you haven't actually dealt with the trauma. That's still playing over and over and over in your head. And that part isn't any different to if you have been hurt in a relationship and you're still playing it over and over again in your head, and you haven't dealt with those feelings that have come up, you haven't dealt with those emotions, then it's very likely that your nervous system is dysregulated, and no amount of medication is going to make you deal with those things. But there are lots of techniques that you can deal with, like to use to deal with this. And just to point out, like I'm not anti-medication. You can do these things and take medication. As I've said, I'm not a medical professional. If you can do everything in your power to help heal yourself, whether that is medication and therapy, medication and a coach, medication and just working on yourself, reading self-help books. It doesn't have to be an either or, is what I'm saying. So one of the techniques is mainly getting back to the source. So what happened? And this can be quite difficult without some sort of support, but you can start trying with kind of tiny mindfulness exercises, like going for a walk or just rolling your shoulders. If you have tense shoulders, roll them around. The sixth clear sign that you struggle. The sixth clear sign is that you struggle to relax, even when things are really good. So you start to feel a little bit stable, and then bam, you do something to sabotage it. One of my clients recently, they started chatting to someone who she actually felt safe with. And then she just decided to start ignoring his texts. And when we talked about it, she said that it felt too easy. So she assumed that there must be something wrong with him. And she decided to pull herself away before she could get hurt again. Have you ever done this? Because I know I have. I tried it with Alan. You see, my husband, he is the opposite to anyone I've ever dated before. And I know you've heard this before, and I know you don't all come to hear about Alan, you know. But when we first started dating, I think I must have dumped him 100 times. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but it was so weird for me to be in a situation where someone made me feel safe. I didn't have to guess what he was thinking because he told me. And actually, that made me feel really uneasy. And everything within me wanted to kind of pull away. I'm glad that I didn't. But the key part here is that I had done the work. So I'd been through the healing process that I teach my clients, but I wasn't being consistent with it when I met someone. I'd learned how to tune into my intuition, and I knew that he was right for me, but my nervous system went into safety mode overdrive. But luckily, I obviously had already learnt this stuff and was able to bring myself out of it because I started seeing signs. And this is partly the reason that I give my clients lifetime access to any of the recordings, because at some point in the future, they may come up against their nervous system trying to keep them safe. And I used to offer like a year-long one-to-one mentorship, and I haven't done it for 2 years, but it was amazing. Because once my clients started dating, after they'd gone through phase one of the healing, rewiring the nervous system, I was then still there to be their kind of regulation wing woman, I suppose, to help flush out these problems when they came up. Because I'd love to tell you all that even once you've done all of this, that some of those things won't come up for you anymore. But that would be a lie, and I'm not, in the business of lying to people. You have been living in the same state for a really, really long time. And anyone here that has ever tried to give up a habit, maybe you've tried to give up smoking or you tried to give up chocolate, it's become a habit for you. And even, people will do it where they will go for years, they don't smoke for years, and then all of a sudden they walk past someone that's smoking and they smell it and they think, oh, that smells nice. That is because your body remembers. And it's exactly the same when you get into dating. You have healed your nervous system, so you aren't going to be attracting the same kinds of people anymore. because you'll notice the red flags straight away and you'll be like, that isn't what I want. But you may still come up against some obstacles. The kind of obstacles that are like, this is actually really scary for me right now because I've been hurt quite a few times before and this person seems really legit. And I know that if I fall for them, actually the pain that I might feel may be way worse than any pain that I've felt before. And that moment is scary. And I had that moment. I had that moment with Alan where I thought, this is bad. This could be bad for me. But you can't live your life in fear because no one would ever do anything. And so you work with me, you get lifetime recordings because there will be times where you're like, I need to go back and speak to Sam. But you will recognize it in yourself. And that's the difference. Because most of the stuff that I talk about on the podcast, I have people emailing me and they're like, I didn't realize I did that. And it's just making people aware of the things that they might not know about. Right, so hidden sign number 7, your gut. And no, I don't mean when people talk about a gut feeling, although that is an instrument that you can use to your advantage once you've got this nervous system problem in check. What I see so often is people suffering with stomach problems. So they'll have bloating, they'll feel sick, they have constipation. And if you're listening and you've ever been really nervous about something, you will know what I mean when I say nervous poo. Some of the symptoms can also include like swinging between binge eating and not eating at all. And the reason is because your gut and your brain are in constant conversation. And heartbreak, stress, trauma, all messes with that connection. So your gut, your stomach, literally doesn't know what's going on. And so it kind of goes into a bit of a panic mode. And that is why you start to get these symptoms. And if this is something that you have struggled with, it could be as simple as starting with like easy digestible foods. So I'm not a nutritionist, that is a disclaimer, but I do know a little bit about food. Obviously, you all know that I've lost a lot of weight. So things like eggs, chicken, sweet potato, warm cooked meals, and eat them slowly. Because this hidden symptom is one that shows up, I would say, in like 70% of the people that I work with. And they don't even realise it. And most of my clients, I will actually ask that question, like when I start working with someone, do you like ever feel sick? Do you ever feel bloated? Because there's a connection there that people just don't even realise is happening. But now you know. So if that is coming up for you, simple things to start making it better. Start telling your gut, your stomach, that everything is okay. So the 8th sign that you haven't healed your nervous system is simply attracting or being attracted to the same types of people. And you've probably heard me talk about this lots of times, about how the nervous system mistakenly thinks safety is something that is familiar. So if you had chaos in your childhood, you are likely to feel bored when things are calm. If you've had toxic relationship after toxic relationship, you probably won't get that spark from someone who gives off safe vibes. And that's why a lot of women, it is mainly women, will go for bad boys, what they term bad boys, because their nervous system gives them a vibe that these people are the type of people they're supposed to be with. They're exciting. And a lot of the women that I work with, they tend to say things to me like, well, you know, I'm not the party girl. But then they go after men or keep attracting men or are attracted to men that are the party boys. And it's a disconnect. So if you are sat there, and this is one that I hear all the time. I keep getting into these same relationships, different people, but like the outcome is the same, the feelings are the same, and I end up feeling worse than ever every time. And I get a lot of people that come to me that say, I must be the problem because this keeps happening over and over again. It's just your nervous system thinking that these type of people are safe for you because you know the outcome. So I would always start with writing out your past kind of 3 connections. Think about it. What did they have in common? What felt familiar? What hurt? Because awareness is step 1. Repatterning is step 2. And we learn all about that in Aligned Love. Another hidden sign of a dysregulated nervous system, and this might be one where some of you are like, oh, that's why. And that is feeling overwhelmed by crowds, by noise, or even by affection. Someone touches you and your instinct is to pull away. Even hugs can be awkward because every part of you is saying, get off, get off, get off. Even if it's from someone that you love, like a child or a parent. And when that happens, people tend to feel really bad because they're like, I love that person, so why do I not want them to hug me? And it's just your dysregulated nervous system going, no, get away from me. And so one of the other things, obviously this is linked to kind of the numbing and shutting down, is when you go out, you feel tired, you feel drained, rather than feeling like excited, and you can't wait to get home. And this is, it's just sensory overload. And it's really common with people who have been hurt, stressed, or had traumatizing experiences. What I'd like to say is just remember to breathe. This isn't something that is a quick fix. If you are struggling with your nervous system, if you are, seeing some of these different signs, it's not a quick fix where you can just be like, I'm just going to get on with it. Because you'll actually make yourself feel worse than ever. So the power of our breath is insane. Most people don't take the time to breathe, and really kind of sit and breathe. And you don't need to do it for hours. You don't need it to even do it for 20 minutes. You literally sit for 3 minutes just focusing on breathing in and breathing out. And naturally you will start to feel better. That's why, if you've ever seen on TV, people when they're having like an anxiety attack or they're having a panic attack, they give them a paper bag to breathe into. And they say to them, come on, breathe in and breathe out. They're trying to regulate them. Start your breathing journey. 10th secret way that our nervous system is telling us that we haven't healed and we aren't maybe ready for a new relationship is constantly blaming ourselves for a breakup. This is really common, even when logically it doesn't make any sense. So I can't tell you the amount of single people that I've worked with who have been cheated on and have somehow made this their fault. So they will say stuff like, I pushed them into it. Maybe I wasn't loving enough. Maybe I didn't have sex with them enough. Or the one where someone has left them for somebody else and they say, maybe if I'd been a bit more outgoing like that person, or maybe if I was willing to spend all day in the pub. And I'm here to tell you to stop it. Those people have choices. They chose to do those things. And so if you have been thinking any of these things, putting blame on yourself, I want you to write down, if your sister, friend, daughter was saying this to you, what would be your response? Because I guarantee you wouldn't be putting blame on them. There would be no blame there. And there's no reason for you to be blaming yourself. It's just your nervous system hasn't healed yet. The 11th secret symptom is you falling in love fast with someone. And so I'm talking about moving in with each other within a few months, maybe weeks, or being completely not interested in dating. So you're either diving headfirst in with people you barely know, or you're avoiding any sort of connection completely. And these are both, and there are some super simple steps to help with this one. It could be as simple as setting goals for what you want and making sure that you don't break them. But again, this is something that is better done within a discussion with a professional to work out what tools are best for you. The penultimate secret way your nervous system is telling you it isn't healed yet is in your sleep. Is your mind going into overdrive at night? Or are you waking up so tired? That is your nervous system telling you aren't safe enough to rest. So if you think about it this way, you've heard about adrenaline rush, right? Stories where people have lifted cars and ran further than was, physically possible. Well, let's imagine that you were getting chased by a bear in the woods. You are in a life-threatening situation. Do you think you would be able to lay down and just go to sleep? No. And although right now you aren't in a life-threatening situation in the physical sense, your nervous system is thinking that you're in danger. And we don't sleep when we're in danger. One of my top tips is to get rid of your phone before bed. Put it away from you and do some soft breathing. Do a guided nervous system reset meditation. And, I've got tons of these. Think of it in the sense that, if you had a child that was struggling to go to sleep and was keeping you up all night, you would get a bedtime routine. You'd be researching the best bedtime routine. My child doesn't sleep. What do I do? Because, you're losing out on sleep, so you would be trying to make sure that didn't happen. But when it comes to us, we don't do that. Get yourself a proper bedtime routine. You may need to try a few different things out. But key is getting away from your phone at least an hour before going to bed. There's lots of research into kind of the blue screen stuff and all of that. I don't really understand it, and in all honesty, don't care that much to understand it. All I know is get away from your screen and you sleep better. If you like baths, go have a bath. If you like to read, if you like to meditate, whatever it is to start to calm yourself down and tell yourself, actually, I'm safe here. Do that, because everyone deserves to have a proper night's sleep, and you cannot function properly without it. You may think that you do, but you don't have the same communication skills. You don't have the same energy if you are exhausted. And that brings me to the final symptom that we're going to talk about today. And that is being defensive or irritable. And you may have even jumped on that whilst you've been listening to this episode. How dare she tell me to just stop it? And this happens so often. We get irritated by tiny little things. And even afterwards can think to ourselves, why was I so mad about that? One of my clients, she went on a date and the man she was with told her that she was beautiful. And she was furious about it. She was so annoyed that she actually left the date. And she didn't even realise kind of what she was doing. When we talked about it, when she brought up that she'd left early, we started to look at why. Why did that trigger her being angry? And so, a long story short, every person in her life that had ever paid her a compliment ended up being controlling of her. So that was parents, that was friends, that was ex-partners. Her association didn't make logical sense. until she unpicked it. Safety for her meant pushing people away. And this was something that she had always done. It was safer for her to be alone. That man saying to her that she was beautiful sent trigger alarm bells going off of this person isn't safe, because everyone that's ever paid you a compliment has ended up hurting you. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, that's me, and maybe several of these, they resonated with you, I just want you to know that this can be healed, that you don't have to go through the rest of your life living like this. It does take intention, it does take awareness, and it does take practice so that you can start to heal these symptoms, so that you can start to attract into your life the things that you really want. The bottom line is, can you find love with a dysregulated nervous system? Yes. Can you build a sustainable, healthy, aligned relationship with a dysregulated nervous system? Extremely unlikely, without doing some form of intervention to learn to regulate it. And whether that is alone or whether that's with a professional, it's still needed. And if that is something that you want support with, if you are tired of this nervous system running the show, I want to invite you to a 2-day free live event with me to get you started on the journey, where we are going to discover what has been holding you back from finding the love you want, a complete roadmap to finding real authentic love, and how to start healing your nervous system so that it no longer stops you living your best life. People who have been on these free training events with me previously have said they can't believe that just from one session so much has shifted for them. So Imogen said that after the free event that she slept for the first time in months without a sleeping pill. And Nicola, she said she's just released all of the tension and anxiety that she had built up from a free event. So I would love for you to join us. I'll put the link in the show notes below. It's time for you to start changing your life. And for now, go and have the best week. Start your journey into healing by subscribing to this podcast. I am SMr&x, and I will speak to you next week. P.S. If you do want to do some research about yourself, I've linked up all the studies and research that I've taken this information from below in the show notes so that you can actually start on this healing journey yourself. Speak to you next week.